Hello friends, welcome back for another part of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included's base game. We're getting pretty close to being done here, probably only a couple videos left. Just to kind of keep a track on our progress, all we need to really do is finish our monument, which is about a third of the way done. We just need more supplies. And breaching the temporal tear. The temporal tear is a little bit further away. We will need a new fuel type, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. As far as progress on the map, I have found fullerene on one of these asteroids. So fullerene is what we need in order to start producing supercoolant, which was what we need to create liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, which is going to be the last rocket types. And they're going to be required, as far as I know, to get to the temporal tear. So this is about the status of my research that's going on here. Just kind of getting everything, but I'm not ready to use some of this stuff yet until we get the right materials. So looks like this is ready to go, but what this is basically our rocket that's going to go retrieve stuff from an asteroid. So I want that fullerene, so I'm going to be sending this rocket to the asteroid that has fullerene. And all it will do is it'll kind of go there, it'll pick up a whole bunch of stuff in its cargo bays, and it'll come back. The cargo bays are going to be connected up by rail, and I'm going to go through two places. First, I'm going to go through my steam, just in case it's really hot material. I don't know what temperature it's going to come back at, so in case it's really hot, I want it to go through here. It'll kind of regulate to the temperature of the steam, and then I'm going to cool it down by going through the water here. So whatever it is ought to come out at a reasonable temperature, and if it was too hot, I'm going to gain energy. If it was too cold, then I'm just going to heat it up to a normal degree anyway. So this is about what I'm going to do when I ship stuff back. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this really quickly. Should be good. Let's launch that mission. And you always are going to get timers on these rockets for how long it's going to take before they get back and where they're going. So, yeah. The only other mission that I'm running right now is basically just to check to see if there's any fullerene any closer. And I'll just keep checking other asteroids, because if there's asteroids that have a larger percentage of fullerene, I'll probably want to run missions there instead. So, the fullerene is for this supercoolant, which you can see here. The requirements for it are obviously fullerene. The gold, and I have gold that's going to be shipped to this location because it's already being used for this oxalite refinery. I'm going to turn this oxalite refinery off because we have plenty and we're about to switch off of it anyway. So, by the way, is that not being shipped here? What is going on? Why do I feel like there's nothing sitting in here that should be? Maybe I just don't have any gold yet. Yeah, I must just not have some ready. Okay, so yeah, the gold's just going to be chilling in here. And then whenever the supercoolant gets produced, it's just going to kind of sit on the ground. I will need to eventually pump it into here. So we'll start talking about this system. Oh, by the way, petroleum drop next door, because we're going to also need petroleum in a bottled form. We can't, like, run the petroleum straight into the machine, which is kind of unfortunate. So it's in bottled form. I just have it sitting on top of a few liquid tiles, lol. Lead tiles here that's going to be bordering my hydrogen area, which will keep it relatively cool. This area is not particularly cool, I would say, but it's also not hurting anything right now, so as long as it's not overheating any machinery that's nearby, which it could be depending on the temperature of your petroleum down there. Yeah, so that could definitely be going on. Actually, speaking of which, let me check on my gold volcano really quickly. Is this ready to go? Yeah, okay, we're just shipping stuff out right now. Hasn't quite erupted, I don't think. But gold volcano is ready to go, so when that starts flowing, we'll have a lot more gold to work with. I know it was something that we were talking about, I just didn't remember what the state of it was before I started recording. Okay, so let's start setting up our area that's going to be to liquefy oxygen and hydrogen. I'm going to do oxygen in this one, only because it's further away, it's going to be exposed to more temperature change as it travels, and there's a lot more tolerance for the range of oxygen. So if we look at this, for the condensation point of oxygen, I need to get this down to minus 183 Celsius. And then once I get it to that point, if we go into the liquid, it still has a range up to 218 before it finally solidifies. So I have quite a bit of room to play with when this is still a liquid. So I'm going to build this further away from the places that it needs to go. And the place that it needs to go is obviously into this rocket, but it might need to travel through here a little bit more. My meteors are getting destroyed from the meteor shower. That's what that would effect was. So I'm going to do oxygen in this one, we'll do hydrogen in this one. For both of them, I'm going to just place the exact same things because I still want to get rid of some of the gases that might be in here. So, yeah, so they're going to both be built exactly the same way. I'm going to need a pump for both of them so I can vacuum out the rooms as needed. This is also just in case any weird stuff gets in here that I don't want over time. I can just turn this on and vent it and then re-allow the gases to come back in. I'm also going to need 2 liquid pumps on both sides. One is going to be for the supercoolant so I can pump it in and out of the aqua tuner. And one is going to be to just pump the fuel straight into my rocket. So something like this. Both of the pumps that are hooked up for the supercoolant are going to need to be set up in a way that we can measure the temperature and tune the supercoolant in to liquefy the stuff in there without freezing it. So I'm going to hook those up to temperature sensors like that. We'll get those settings here in just a minute. I just want these pumps on manual switches for right now. And then when I need to fill my rockets, I'll turn them on. When the rockets are full, I'll turn them off. We might vent some of it just because it might break our pipes and stuff like that. Not that big of a deal, though. So I'm going to start with all these off, which I definitely need to do. For the pumps that are going to come out of here, I just want to get this gas out. It doesn't really matter what's in here. This is just to remove it entirely. So, I don't know, just pump it out like this, I guess. And we'll put those on switches also, just so we can manually control it. This is, again, I'm just going to re-preach that anything that you need to potentially control in any way, just put them on a manual switch unless you have a better form of automation for it. There's not much reason not to, especially once you have all this lead accessible to you, so yeah, you might want to stay on top of that. We'll also need power to run up here. Our power situation is a little bit messy, but it's not too horrible. And I definitely want to do this all with conductive wire. I don't want to sacrifice the temperature changes that are in here by running heavy watt wire in here or something like that. And also, this is encased entirely in ceramic, so each one of these is as immune to the surrounding gases as possible. So you'll definitely want to do something like that, but we will have a system to keep all this stuff cool. Like usual, turn off all the switches, connect up our gas pipes here, and the outlet is just going to be these high pressure gas vents, just to make sure we can vent when we want to. Let's see, one more thing that we need, well, we need a couple more things in here actually. One of which is the vent to get the supercoolant back to this area. So just need to drop a vent here, which the game is just loading for a bit. We're going to need a second vent too, which is just going to be to initially fill it. I don't really want to have the initial filling paired with the loop that's going to be going in and out of the aqua tuners. The aqua tuners down here, we can set these up to make sure the piping is going to be nice and smooth. I don't know, somewhere around here, I guess. We're going to need extra power for those things too. So, like I mentioned, this is going to be very power intensive. This is why we spent the whole mid-game really making sure that our power was stabilized so that we can really be cavalier with how much we're using right here. We should have plenty to go around. So the pipes that are coming in are just going to be from the supercoolant that was just produced. I'm just going to create a setup right here that's just going to be to pump it out. It's going to come out in a bottled form. So I'm just going to create something really quickly that's like this, which is just going to be to accept the supercoolant, making them all out of airflow tiles, just so that nothing really gets stuck in any of these places. So the supercoolant is just going to be coming out of a bottle emptier and into something like this. Not overly fancy. Going to have to pump it out using our liquid pump, so we'll place it like this. And I'm just going to distribute it evenly between these two. There will be a point when I don't need any more, and I won't worry about it that much when we get there. So I'm just going to hook it up like that. And then we'll set all this stuff up in a minute. The actual temperature numbers for this is going to vary depending on how you set this up. I'm going to try to dial this in, but basically you need to know that because all this inner area is made out of metal tiles, the supercoolant is going to share its temperature with its neighbor room as much as possible. But I need to get it to a point where it will condense these gases down into a liquid form. Like we knew from oxygen, it's going to be minus 183. For hydrogen, it's going to be a lot lower, minus 252. But the problem with hydrogen is that its range until it's solid is really low. So we're just going to have to find a temperature between here to sit the supercoolant at to help it condense down into a liquid form without freezing it. There's a couple of little tricks you can do here too that I'll show you. So let's first set up the loop for our hydrogen because that's going to be the one that's a little bit more fussy. So what we're going to need is ceramic to send it out. This is why I recommend to keep your ceramic running the whole game. You need it for a lot of different random things. I'm just going to send it in here in the wall so that it's not sharing too much, but I need to keep enough space for everything that's going to come down. Probably going to have a ton of things that are coming down through here. So, actually, it's fine. Let's just do it this way. If you can't get access to these tiles, you can just kind of build ladders that are nearby to help them reach it. So the supercoolant's going to come down this pipe. I'm not going to necessarily hook it up to the aqua tuner yet because it doesn't really matter. I won't need to use it until we actually have the material. When it comes back up, though, this is the place where I can kind of do some tricks to get it to share its temperature a little bit better with the gases. So I'm going to loop it up for a couple tiles here. I need to keep space for where I'm going to be sending it out into the actual rockets. So I'm just going to draw a straight line with the ceramic on each of these pumps that are going to get the liquid fuel out. Then, once I jump over it like this, I'm just going to put another tile, and I'm going to put radiant pipe that runs all along the top here and all along the sides, so that if there's any extra gas that's sitting in this area that needs to be condensed, this is going to be the coolest time that the supercoolant is running, and it will cool this area before it will cool the bottom. So this will kind of have our best chance of keeping this all liquefied without solidifying any of it. So I'm just going to do something like that. I'm only going to hook up one because the piping is going to be exactly the same for the other one. So, I mean, we can always just draw some examples here. By the way, I've left some gaps in these tiles so that you can't actually draw stuff. So for this one, it's just going to need to come down like this. It'll need to hop over this pipe. It's going to come back from the aqua tuner here, run up like that, liquid bridge, insulated pipe, and then radiant once again. So just kind of loop around back into here. So that's going to be pretty much it for the supercoolant loop. The last thing we're going to need is just how we're going to get gas into these rooms. So I'm going to set up some gas pressure vents here. I'm going to set it up on the top of both of them. This can be a little bit awkward for the hydrogen. We're going to have to kind of run it in from the side. I want to also make sure that it doesn't condense on its way in. So we're going to have to do something like this for the hydrogen. And it's going to be a little bit far away, but we can just set up some controls down here. I'm going to set up some controls for each of these as far as whether to allow the hydrogen to flow in. You don't want to put something here, like to turn that vent on and off, because if it sits in this pipe, it'll eventually break it. And if you ever have to open this up, it is really a pain to get back to where it was. So I want to make sure I do this right the first time. The rest of this doesn't necessarily need to be insulated pipe, though, by the way, so I can just probably get rid of that. I'll just start on the insulated pipe once it starts crossing into the areas that it is going to be a little bit more of a problem. So for the hydrogen, it's going to come in from the bottom here, and I'll just run it with normal pipe up until it meets with this. And I'm just going to put this on the switch once again, so I can just turn it on and off. And I'll hook this line up to the hydrogen wherever it's going to be coming out. I'm producing it here so I can just kind of hijack the pipe from this and just have it come out here instead of going into my machines if I want it to go that way. This is also another reason why we got this hydrogen vent. So if you have one, this is also a point where you could just steal the hydrogen from before it goes into your power generators down here. You could just steal it off the line and send it over to where we're going to go. Probably just do it like right here, actually. That way, if this line's open and available, it'll just travel up this line instead of the other one. I'm planning on talking about some kind of tips and tricks for piping. So if you don't know all the ways that you can like steal from other lines, I'll probably put a video out really quickly. I do have like a general piping tutorial, but it's pretty old. I kind of want to update it by this point. But yeah, that's pretty much the idea. So the oxygen I'll just have coming in from the top here. And this is basically going to be the setup. Like we typically will do, I'll wait until the next video, and probably going to be when we start turning all this stuff on before you see everything in action. So the next video we'll be doing that. This one was mostly just to talk about the idea with the setup so that the next one makes more sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video really quickly to get this all turned on, and soon enough we will be breaching the temporal tear and we will be finishing this thing. So thanks again, and I'll see you really soon.